With Thrawn making the move from books to animated TV shows and now to live action, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk about the history of Grand Admirals in and out of universe, going over the rank and everyone who held it in both Legends and Canon. The rank of Grand Admiral was originally created for Thrawn in the 1991 book Heir to the Empire, where the author Timothy Zahn pulled the name from the German Navy after reading about it in Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, and deciding he wanted to make his villain a military leader rather than a political one like a Grand Moff, but he felt that the standard rank of Admiral would be too commonplace. Thrawn needed to be a special little guy. In the original Thrawn trilogy, while Thrawn was presented as an impressive strategist, the implication was that his level of prowess would be expected from the other Grand Admirals as well. When Lando Calrissian first learns that the figure responsible for the Empire's recent victories is a Grand Admiral, he remarks that it explains why the New Republic has been getting cut up so badly. It is made clear over the course of the trilogy, though, that Thrawn's creative use of non-standard assets did set him apart from his former colleagues. This characterization of Grand Admirals as skilled military leaders did fall apart a bit as time went on. While Thrawn is the most famous Grand Admiral and is said to be the last holding his rank in both the Thrawn trilogy for Legends and now in Ahsoka for Canon, he was not one of the original 12 appointees in either continuity. The Grand Admirals in Legends, known as the Circle of 12 under the Empire, originally consisted of, believe it or not, 12 appointees. The rank was created and announced in the New Year's Celebration Week, 2 years before the Battle of Yavin. And as the rank was further fleshed out, there was a bigger range of strategic skill within Grand Admirals than the Thrawn trilogy originally implied. While some of the 12 seemed capable of rivaling the likes of Thrawn or Akbar at his peak, others had skill sets more inclined towards weapons development, and as you'd expect with the Empire, a third group were clear political appointees with their military skill and experience of any kind ranging from mediocre to entirely non-existent. The questionable military experience and skill of most of the Grand Admirals led to no shortage of conspiracy theories within the Admiralty and Imperial Court. Unfortunately, very few of these Grand Admirals appear in any stories directly, but all of them were included in the Star Wars Insider Issue 66 article, Who's Who Imperial Grand Admirals. While I'll be briefly covering each Grand Admiral in this video, I've done more extensive standalone videos on most of them in the past as well, and I'll link to the playlist for that in the description. If you want to see more videos like that as they come out, you could even leave a like and subscribe while watching this one. The first Grand Admiral to die, and the only one to die before the Emperor, was Grand Admiral Zarin. He was a skilled commander, but his primary accomplishments fell into the tech development field. While Thrawn developed the TIE Defender in canon, in Legends that particular ship was the creation of Zarin, who used them to plot a coup and attempted to replace Palpatine as Emperor. This brought him into conflict with Thrawn, whose victory over Zarin won him the newly opened 12th Grand Admiral position, spurring even more conspiracy theories about the Circle of 12, given it was abundantly clear he wasn't human and that was kind of a big deal to them. 4 of the Grand Admirals were present at Endor: Niall Declan, Afshin Makati, Milton Tackle, and Oswald Teshik. Declan fit into the category of the accomplished military leaders by the time of his appointment, having served in the Clone Wars and then achieving notable success in the Empire as a TIE pilot. This career wasn't so notable that it put him head and shoulders above other potential candidates, though. What probably drew the attention of Palpatine more than that career was that he had latent Force abilities, which he'd developed as a dark side adept under Palpatine on Drummond Cass, before he was allowed to return to the fleet, becoming a practitioner of the rare ability of battle meditation, which allowed him to coordinate his forces far more effectively than enemy commanders. He was stationed on the second Death Star, assisting the Emperor's own battle meditation, and when he sensed the Emperor's supposed death, he ran to the throne room hoping to help, but the station exploded before he could do anything. The other 3 Grand Admirals on the station managed to survive its destruction. One of the 3, Milton Tackle, was famous for his vices, although he was experienced and accomplished enough that his promotion was one of the few which was never questioned. He loved life in the Imperial Court and used his position to indulge in vices from drugs to doing things I can't talk about on YouTube with members of any species or gender, often requiring his brother, the governor of Esselis, to protect him from the political fallout of his actions. His spice addiction sometimes gave him telepathic powers, and while on the Death Star, he was able to sense Declan's force-based anxiety about the course of the battle. Rather than attempt to help the Imperial forces remaining behind, he and Afshin Makati abandoned the station and the fleet. Following Endor, Tackle's usual territory near Mandalore was taken by Grand Admiral Grunger, forcing Tackle to join with the Central Committee of Grand Moffs on Kessel during their plot to install a fake son of Palpatine on the Imperial throne. Tackle was killed by this group in the year following Endor for questioning their military decisions. Makati, the escape partner of Tackle, wasn't particularly notable as a strategist, nor for any political reason either. It's not that he was particularly incompetent either, his appointment was really just a surprise. After following Tackle out of Endor, Makati ended up offering his services to Intelligence Director Isard, who had become the de facto ruler of the Empire, requesting permission to hunt down a prophet of the dark side named Kadan, who had embarrassed Makati by using Force Lightning on him after Makati's first officer made some disrespectful remarks. He blew up Scardia Station, home of Kadan and the other prophets, and then was killed sometime later while fighting in the corporate sector against the rebellion. Oswald Teshik, the final Grand Admiral present at the battle, was possibly the most skilled strategist of the Grand Admirals after Thrawn himself, and he was in charge of the protection of the core worlds. Despite his skill, shortly before the Battle of Yavin, he had failed to rescue an Imperial advisor, Ko Veshiv, after he was captured. As punishment, Palpatine sent Teshik to the Hapes Consortium with a small token force of light ships, essentially as an execution. He barely survived and required 3/4 of his body to be replaced or augmented with cybernetics, leading to relentless discrimination within the Empire. He was pinned by a falling beam during Endor, and was freed by a construction worker, the first person to show him compassion in a long time. With Palpatine, Vader, and Declan having been killed on the Death Star itself, and Makati and Tackle having fled the battle, Teshik was the highest-ranking member still present after the Death Star's destruction. He took command of the Imperial fleet and was captured before command fell to Captain Gilad Pellaeon, who called for a retreat. As the highest-ranking Imperial captured at Endor, the New Republic decided to make an example of him. He was executed by the New Republic for inhuman atrocities against the citizens of the galaxy. With Endor and the Emperor out of the way, 2 more of the Grand Admirals who were less suited to the new Imperial infighting met a quick end. Grand Admiral Batch had been like Zarin in that he'd been more inclined towards weapons development. His lack of interest in court politics led to the moniker the Invisible Admiral, which fit given he worked on cloaking devices. He developed the TIE Phantom fighter, and even outfit his research facility and a superstar destroyer, the Terror, with a cloaking device. His research was destroyed by the rebels, and shortly after Endor his crew mutinied against him, killing him and taking his ships to Warlord Harsk in the Deep Core. The second Grand Admiral, Ishin Ilraz, was somehow even less suited to this new period. He'd been entirely elevated for his political reputation. Ilraz had been leading anti-alien and pro-authoritarian groups in protests like Comp Nor for most of his life, even as early as the Republic. His appointment to the rank of Grand Admiral, given his complete lack of military experience, was heavily criticized, but his zealotry was unquestioned. In order to prove himself worthy of the rank, he engaged in massive civilian massacres in the Emperor's name, effectively only spurring on more criticism from basically all sides. When his idol Palpatine was thrown down a shaft, he threw his own Star Destroyer into a nova, killing himself. Donetta Pitta and Joseph Grunger were arguably the most successful at setting themselves up in this new environment, though their success was still short-lived. Grunger was 4th of the 5 particularly well-respected strategists among the Grand Admirals, along with Tackle, Teshik, Thrawn, and Tigellinus, who we haven't mentioned yet, making Grunger the only of the Grand Admirals who was seen as deserving his new post whose name didn't also start with T. Grunger found himself with a massive fleet after Endor, and he used these assets to bully Milton Tackle out of Mandalorian space, while Pitta, who had only been known for his violently anti-alien attitude and politics upon his appointment, secured Corellian space for himself. Grunger set his sights on Corellia with his Executor-class Aggressor, despite being theoretically more skilled than Pitta and having quite a few assets for himself. This battle and the lives of both Grand Admirals present ended when Grunger used his Super Star Destroyer to ram the torpedo sphere being operated by Pitta. Tigellinus, probably named after Roman praetor Aphonius Tigellinus, was a charismatic political powerhouse who fit right in with the Empire's anti-alien biases, on top of his exceptional military skill. He was more interested in politics than the military, and after Thrawn was appointed the next Grand Admiral following Zarin's death, Tigellinus took special interest in undermining Thrawn. He thought he had won when Thrawn was exiled to the Unknown Regions, though in reality this was part of a plot between Thrawn and Palpatine to subjugate the area. From here, Tigellinus shifted into the role of Grand Moff, overseeing much of the core. He made a new political enemy, the also-alien Grand Moff Hyssa, during the Emperor's reign, and following Endor, Hyssa led the Central Committee of Grand Moffs, the same group which killed Tackle. Hyssa offered Tigellinus a degrading deal, which his ally Dizra advised he reject. He followed the conniving Moff Dizra's advice, leading to his own death, while Dizra took his place and joined the committee. Pakati Sin was another mediocre military leader whose appointment surprised many. Really, he was more of a religious zealot than a commander. His religion, known as the Sacred Way, was banned by the Empire, but he was happy to fill the void left by it with devotion to the New Order, until that too was stripped away by Palpatine's death. He remained technically in support of St. Pessage's ruling from Coruscant, but his real loyalties turned to the prophets of the dark side, who gave him a new religion to follow until he was killed by Admiral Akbar in the Battle of Kashyyyk, making him the fourth and final Grand Admiral killed by the Rebellion or New Republic, along with Makati, Declan, and Teshik. While the New Republic didn't need to do much to kill the Grand Admirals, they did pretty successfully keep track of them in general, and they technically managed to defeat another of the Grand Admirals, albeit indirectly. This was the final original Grand Admiral, Grant, who came from a rich and esteemed core family and had been a military commander since the Republic and the Clone Wars, though he was not quite as skilled or well regarded as the 4Ts and Grunger. He was effective, if not notable, in his anti-rebel actions during the Imperial period, and he held typical Imperial disdain for civilians and aliens. His lack of effort on the political side left him with no backing after Endor, so he was forced to find refuge in the warlord kingdom of Artus Cain, the Pentastar alignment. As the Empire's remnants continued to fall apart around him, Grant freely surrendered to the New Republic, trading military secrets for a quiet retirement and amnesty. Much like Tigellinus, he had long held Grand Admiral Thrawn in contempt, so when Thrawn turned up in command of the Empire, Grant offered to come out of retirement and assist the New Republic in their fight against him, though the New Republic understandably declined. Following Thrawn's death, Grant was the only remaining Grand Admiral, and since he was in retirement within the New Republic, it was entirely out of use in the Empire. As the Empire slowly reunited and stabilized in a much smaller form, the rank was assigned again to Gilad Pellaeon, Thrawn's former second-in-command who had been instrumental in that reunification alongside Admiral Dalla. Over time, the rank became essentially synonymous with the position of Supreme Commander within the Empire. Pellaeon was the only Grand Admiral until he was killed 41 years after Yavin, but in the Legacy comics, the title is also used by Morlis Veed and then Rolf Yeage, both of whom are functionally doubling the title with Supreme Commander as well. In canon, the Thrawn trilogy set in the Galactic Civil War once again reinforces the idea that the rank was largely seen as a political appointment rather than being used solely for standout commanders. There are still 12 appointed, including Thrawn, though it's less clear if there were always meant to be 12 and Thrawn replaced someone else here, or if there had just been 11 before Thrawn's appointment. Unlike with Legends, we don't have a full rundown of these Grand Admirals, so we only know one of the other original ones, Balanhai Savat of the 3rd Fleet commanding from the ISD Firedrake. He also holds the dubious honor of being the only Grand Admiral in either continuity for whom no picture exists. Despite Savat's hopes that Thrawn would suffer politically for his own mistakes, he does cooperate with Thrawn on more than one occasion, so that's more than we ever see from the other Legends Grand Admirals not named Pellaeon. The third and final known Grand Admiral from canon, Ray Sloane, seems to be the result of the same system where the title of Grand Admiral becomes synonymous with Supreme Commander applied to Pellaeon, Veed, and Yeage in Legends. Sloane essentially took over the military between Endor and the Battle of Jakku a year later, with Akbar implying at that battle that she only recently took the title. Following her defeat at Jakku, she retreated to the unknown regions and became involved in the development of the First Order, unbeknownst to most of the galaxy, who incorrectly believed Thrawn to be the last Grand Admiral by the time of Ahsoka, though even then most people already thought Thrawn was dead anyways. While the Shadow Council in The Mandalorian called out Pellaeon for Thrawn not being present, Brendel Hux was not called out in the same way for Ray Sloane not being present, so it's entirely possible even the Empire or remnants of the Empire don't know that she's still around. That's currently it for the Imperial Grand Admirals of both Legends and Canon. Maybe we'll get some more information on Sloane in the future, or learn some more of the outstanding canon names. But for now, their fates are kind of a mystery. Technically, there's some other groups who use the title of Grand Admiral, like the Ancient Sith and Tor for the Void Wolf, and the Mon Calamari, who have Dor's Urtia, but they don't really count for this video. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more.